Welcome back to week 2. This is part 2 of discussing being present. Today we'll be discussing about our storytelling minds and stress in our lives. Then you will get introduced to the stop technique and a mindfulness of sound meditation. Our minds like to tell stories because stories are powerful elements in our lives. Master teacher Jack Kornfield is himself a wonderful storyteller. Yet he also says, we must understand the power of the stories we tell and differentiate them from the direct experience of life. In this way, we can use thoughts without being trapped in them. You've probably heard of the saying that the mind is a wonderful servant, but a horrible master. Imagine you have a constant companion who is with you every moment you are awake. Now that this companion may be well-intentioned and quite decent, but he has this habit of whispering a constant monologue in your ear. This monologue contains a variety of random observations, worries about the future, rehashing of past events, and an assortment of malicious judgments about you and the world around you. So imagine this companion whispering the following into your ear. This is boring. You want to do something more fun. Hey, look at the shoes that woman is wearing. Who would pay for such ugly shoes? Hey, you need a vacation, but you better concentrate on paying your credit card bills instead. Why did your boss put you down in front of everyone yesterday? Maybe you're going to get fired. You never fit in there anyways. And stop eating so much. You're fat. This monologue never ends. Would you tolerate such a companion? Would you find this speech particularly compelling? You would probably do everything you could to get away from it, and it is easy to see how hearing this constant stream of commentary could drive negative mood states and tension in the body. But we do not only tolerate this constant chatter in our minds, we are seduced and memorized by it. We somehow come to believe that these ruminations, judgments, and worries are an accurate representation of how our lives and the world really are. Our mindfulness practice lets us see into the stream of thoughts. We soon learn to identify thoughts as simply that, thoughts. Our thoughts are not reality, not the way things really are. And more important, our thoughts aren't who we are. We get pulled deeply into the constant chatter of the mind. The story we tell ourselves seduces us. It pulls us into a narrative which might not even be at all that accurate, and pulls us away from the sensory experience of the present moment. Our thoughts can pull us away from the felt experience of being fully in our miraculous lives. For example, if you have a history of lower back pain, you have a story about your back. Even if you don't have a history of low back pain, you likely have a story about how your back is. This story is not always aligned with the sensory experience of your back right this moment. Our mindfulness practice allows us to look deeply at our thoughts in a kind and non-judgmental way. We learn that thoughts and stories are always present, but not always true. Now, there are a few key things for you to know about your mind. Our minds are always on. Even when you lie down on the couch to rest for a minute, your mind isn't in neutral mode, but is filled with thoughts, even if they are just below the level of awareness. And the nature of these thoughts shape and drive our lived experience, so we want to understand them. We bring our kind awareness to these thoughts to see the mind's pattern. This is a fundamental skill of a mindfulness practice, observing the mind with kind awareness without getting lost in any particular story. You also cannot turn off thoughts. The goal of mindfulness practice is not to empty the mind or turn off the thoughts. This is impossible. As we said before, the brain secretes thoughts like the mouth secretes saliva. It is just what the mind does. Be cautious of falling into the trap of expecting to control the thoughts or the wandering mind. Thought structure has a tendency to proliferate. We start thinking about one thing and this branches out and out again until we are thinking about something seemingly unrelated and don't know how we got there. Another key point about your mind is just because you can think it doesn't mean that it's true. We all have wonderfully creative minds. Just imagine riding through the sky on the back of a dragon. Feel the wind in your face and taste the scorched, sulfurous air of your pet dragon's fiery breath. We can think about all this, but that certainly doesn't make it true. But that one is easier to see as a fantasy than other thoughts we might have that made up our creative minds and have just a little to do with reality as riding a dragon. For instance, what if, after some of your friends got together and didn't invite you, you thought, I must have done something to make them mad at me? After thinking this thought for a few hours, we convince ourselves it must be true. We like to use the expression, thoughts are not facts, even the ones that tell you they are. It is important not to distinguish between good and bad thoughts. We don't have to work with our thoughts in any particular way. From a mindfulness approach, we don't have to work with each thought. We just learn to relate all thoughts differently. Some can have an overwhelming feeling of unending torrent of negative thoughts. Sometimes it can feel hopeless and bleak to sit with a stream of difficult thoughts, like standing at the bottom of a giant waterfall. Tons of water come pouring down directly on your head, much like being constantly bombarded by negative thoughts. The instinct might be to try to turn off the waterfall, but this is hopeless and an impossible task. It takes skill to realize you don't have to stand right in the spot where tons of water falls. Simply take a few steps back and move behind the waterfall. You can find refuge beneath an overhang where you can observe the powerful cascading water without being consumed by it. Learn to lean back from your experience and observe it without getting lost in it. Master Jack Kornfield suggests 2 steps to relate to our thoughts in useful and healthy ways. The first is simply to come into contact with or bring into our awareness the contents of our own thoughts. This is our internal soundtrack. We need to notice our habits of mind and how repetitive our thinking is. Second, we must develop the skills to disentangle ourselves from all of our thoughts. We discover with great relief that our stories do not fully define us. Much of our mental suffering comes from desperately holding on to our thinking and beliefs. The insubstantial, endlessly repetitive nature of thinking is revealed from within the stillness of our mindfulness practice, and we can rest in the spacious embrace of the loving heart instead of getting lost in the labyrinth of thought. Stress is very subjective. What one person finds enjoyable might be stressful for the next. So do not compare your stressors to others, and it is very different for each person. An individual's stress level is directly related to his or her cognitive appraisal of the event that triggers the stress. An innocent gardener snake may cause fear and a great deal of stress in one person, and a playful sense of working in the garden for another. It is also impossible for anyone to avoid stressful experiences. Our lives are brimming with them. The goal is to manage stress skillfully. A key element is to be aware of internal rumination and worry. Our thoughts and stories can contribute to our stress. And not all stress is bad. A low to medium level of temporary stress can lead to optimal performance. You will continue to gain perspective about your stress as you continue on your mindfulness journey. Although chronic stress negatively impacts your health, chronic stress that is unremitting not only makes us miserable, but also downregulates the immune system and plays a role in cellular aging. Life expectancy in the year 1900 was about 44 years, with the leading cause of death all linked to infectious agents, including pneumonia, tuberculosis, and diarrhea. Now, more than 100 years later, life expectancy is about 79 years. Modern medicine has nearly double the average lifespan. The leading causes of death are now heart disease, cancer, and respiratory illness. These are chronic rather than acute illnesses, and we increasingly understand how stress plays a major role in immune dysregulation and disease. It is essential to understand that our activating systems, the sympathetic nervous system and its fight or flight response, are designed to protect us and to keep us safe. Our ancestors needed this burst of energy and racing heart to get away from those saber-toothed cats. And the ancient people who were always relaxed and mellow? We aren't related to those people. They became some predator's lunch. The problem then isn't that we have this activation mechanism in the body. The issue is it gets triggered not only in life-threatening situations, but throughout the day. This can happen when we are stuck in traffic or a coworker gives us an unpleasant look. In our modern life, we spend too much time in the sympathetic nervous system, or arousal, and not enough time in the parasympathetic system of restoration and healing. We are hardwired to notice threats and bad situations immediately and strongly. This negativity bias is meant to keep us safe. Neuropsychologist and meditation teacher Rick Hanson sums this up with the phrase, "Your brain is like Velcro for negative thoughts and Teflon for positive ones." Our mindfulness practice allows us not to just focus on the negative experiences, but to also savor and soak up the benefits of positive experiences and promote a nervous system shift to a more healing state. Mindfulness helps us to become less reactive to stressors by providing some space between what happens and our reaction. As Viktor Frankl says, between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. This is where our freedom lies. Through this practice, we move the locus of control from being outside of us back to ourselves. I can't control this happening to me, but I can control how I respond to it. As we open up to the present moment and let go of the ruminative mind, we can find more joy and less tension and stress. We are less likely to get lost in the story. Now I will introduce you to the stop technique. This technique is simple, easy to use, and very helpful. Yet a word of caution is needed about the expectations some participants have with this technique. They may feel it only works when they find a sense of calm, feel less reactive, or an urge goes away. The fundamental purpose of the stop technique is to come fully to this moment and observe what is happening rather than just reacting. Sometimes you may notice that the sensations in the body, your thoughts, or your emotions have changed, and sometimes you might notice that they haven't changed at all. You're still doing it right. The goal is to notice, not to change your experience. Stressors make us vulnerable to reacting in a habitual way. And when we are under stress, we frequently have limited access to our internal resources. This habitual reacting may not be the most skillful means available to us in any moment. So when you want to respond skillfully instead of react mindlessly, try the stop technique. It is easy to remember. Stop, even in a stressful situation. The goal isn't necessarily to change how you feel, but to come out of an automatic pilot and notice things just as they are. Stop for just a moment. Don't react. Give yourself the gift of brief reflection. Take the time to breathe. Breathe in and out. Track your breath. Sense the chest rising and falling. Observe your experience. Notice the sensations in the body. Observe the thoughts or the story going through your mind, and appreciate that thoughts are not facts. Explore your emotions and get a sense of where you are in this moment. Proceed. Move forward in a way that feels right to you and is consistent with your values. I hope that you can use this technique easily in your daily life while working with your children. It can be easy to react mindlessly to their constant mishaps. Remember, they are learning. So the next time your child spills something or makes a mess that upsets you, try this technique. I will now introduce you to the mindfulness of sound meditation. Just as sensations in the body is used to anchor us to the present moment in the body scan exercise, so too is this sensory experience of sound used as an anchor to the present moment. It is important to note that using sound as the primary object of mindfulness works better than the breath for some people. The breath is a traditional object for many good reasons, but it isn't always a comfortable choice for certain people. During the mindfulness of sound meditation, the sense of sound is used to come fully to this moment with kind acceptance. The task is to simply notice the soundscape of the present moment. You do not have to interpret the sound or identify what might be making the sound. You also don't have to extend your sense of hearing to seek out sound. You can allow the sounds of the moment to simply come to you. Taking a moment to sit in an upright and dignified posture with both feet flat on the floor. Maybe having a sense that your body is supported yet at ease. Allow your eyes to close or to simply soften your gaze. Notice what is here for you right now in your experience and letting yourself be just as you are. As best you can, taking your attention to your breath, noticing each breath and sensing how the chest rises on the inhale and falls on the exhale. Using your breath as an anchor to the present moment, and each time your mind wanders away from the breath, simply noticing it, and without judgment, bringing your kind attention back to the breath. Breathing in, breathing out, observing the rhythm and quality of the breath just as it is. There is no need to control or manipulate the breath in any way. Simply allowing the breath to breathe with its own natural rhythm. And now, as best you can, change the anchor of your practice from your breath and notice the sounds all around you, directing the attention to the soundscape around you, to the sensation of sound. Sound is the perfect object of mindfulness, as we hear only the sounds of the moment. We don't hear the sounds of the past or the future. What is being heard in this moment? There is no need to identify the sound or try to figure it out in any way. Just notice the quality of the sound, observing the sounds of each moment. Noticing where your mind is right now. Has it bounced into the future? Into planning what is yet to come? Or are you rehashing the past? Just noticing where your attention goes in the silent moments and gently, with kindness, bringing your attention back to the soundscape that's all around you. There is no need to reach out or search for sounds. Fall into receptivity, perhaps without really moving, having the intention to lean back just the slightest bit. You can imagine placing the attention right at the opening of your ears and let the sounds come to you. Each time the mind wanders away, kindly bringing the attention back to the sounds of this moment. The sounds around you are the sounds of this very moment. Notice them. Perhaps you might also notice an automatic sense of liking some sounds more than others. Birdsong might register as a more pleasant than the rumble of a garbage truck. Just notice this. Everything is actually just the sound of the moment. It's only a wave of sound. First, there is only the sound itself, and then the liking or the disliking of it. You, as the one who is hearing, adds the interpretation and judgment, if any, letting it be just as it is. You may notice some sounds are quite close to you. Other sounds are oft in the distance and may be very far away. And if you pay very close attention, you may notice there are even sounds inside your own body. Using the soundscape as an anchor to this moment of your life, right here, right now. Perhaps you are repeatedly distracted by another sensation, emotion, or thought. If it seems particularly sticky, you can try labeling the experience, such as, this is itching, itching, or this is the planning mind. Simply labeling whatever you are experiencing in this moment. And then, without judgment, returning your attention as best you can to sound. What are the sounds of this moment? And now, shifting again, moving the attention away from the sounds and back to the breath. Breathing in and out. Resting in the observation of the breath in your own good company. Each time the mind wanders away, coming back to the breath. This breath right here, breathing in, breathing out, right here in this moment. That concludes our week 2 sessions. For your homework for the rest of this week is the handout, Take a Stress Pause. And again, continue to use the guided meditations daily. Next time, we are moving on to week 3, where we will be working on self-compassion. Remember to work on being present in your daily life and take care.